Hey, everybody, the world can now see us. I want to thank you five for being here tonight. Panel Fest, this is our 10th panel conversation of the event so far. And a lot of the other conversations have been more so conversations of ways a business can be better during the pandemic and just in general. And they're more so suggestions rather than things that need to be done. I feel this conversation is much different because we have a problem in our industry we need to fix and we need to be better. And I'm really looking forward to hearing you five speak tonight to talk about, how we can be better and why we have a problem. Because in order to be better, we have to understand, how we got to this point in time. So over the next hour, I'm really looking forward to your insight into that. Now, we're going to start off with some introductions. Jason, if you'd like to begin, feel free to fill 60 seconds if you like. If not, 6 seconds will do.
So somewhere in between. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Gladfelter. I run the Pub Dialogues in Denver, Colorado since 2012. I am a mediator and conflict management specialist. I got my master's at the University of Denver in conflict resolution years ago. I'm also a beer geek. So what I do is combine the conflict management and the mediation and the facilitative skills and go with craft beer and breweries. I am also a part of a conflict management firm called Oval Options that does in-person mediation. But since COVID hit, we're pivoting a little bit, and I'm focusing more on the Pub Dialogues, which is was a monthly series of public engagement conversations facilitated by conflict management professionals at local breweries. And we would invite the public and to talk about a lot of issues and bring people in from different perspectives. I say we did do that because COVID really kind of hurt us on that. So hopefully by next summer, when people start going to breweries again, we get the Pub Dialogues back up and running. But I'm interested in problem solving, getting to the roots of problems, interpersonal interaction, communication, dispute management, and all that stuff. So that's me.
Well, you definitely hit that 60-second mark, Jason, and I'm glad to have you, and I'm excited for your professional expertise today.
Thank you.
And Dave, for everyone who's probably going to be listening later on Spotify, I have to point out you're drinking a bright orange drink. So why don't you tell everybody what you're drinking and tell everybody who you are?
I'm drinking tequila and orange juice. It's I don't know if it's technically tequila because it's made in PA. But it is agave. So there it is. Out of beer over the weekends. We need to re-up in this pandemic. I'm Dave Bracey. I'm a comedian by trade. I mostly like to drink and talk shit for a living. I have a beer festival called Fresh Fest. It's the first Black beer festival in America. I have a drinking habit. So that's really about it. I have a podcast called Drinking Partners. That's who I am. No degrees. I feel a little naked out here. I'm sitting next to the master, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it was just a piece of
doing
paper.
Important things. I'm really excited to have you here today. I always enjoy the conversations, and it's been cool to watch you pivot through this pandemic so far. And Larry, you are up. Tell everybody watching who you are.
You got it. So I'm Larry Clouser. I'm the owner of the Brewing Company out of Portland, Oregon. And sorry, I'm not sure if anyone can echo. It's just me. Based out of Portland, Oregon. We are a Pacific Island themed brewery. So I used to live in Hawaii. My wife's Pacific Islander. We felt when we went to do this here in Portland that there's a pretty decently sized Pacific Island, Southeast Asian community that we just hit it off with, and with the branding. Since then, I grew up, inner city youth kind of a thing. So we've definitely hit the target for, our city people. We struggle out in the country. Our branding doesn't necessarily do much good out there, but we definitely hit some great targets, and we definitely support the communities that we try to target with as well. So.
And Larry, thank you for joining us today. I'm very curious to hear your unique point of view on this today.
Right,
and Holly,
excellent.
It's always a pleasure talking with you. I mentioned off air that you had a great interview on Good Beer Hunting. You always have fantastic insight. You had some great articles come out recently, but tell everybody else, a little bit about what you do in the industry.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. I'm a journalist who focuses on stories of underrepresented people, mostly in food and beverage, and obviously focusing very heavily on craft beer, since I love craft beer, and just personally as a drinker, enjoy the industry and the people I've met through it, and I'm just very interested in the business side of it as well, and kind of how people interact. So one of the articles that you referred to, I just recently wrote a series for Good Beer Hunting that focused on the LGBTQIA+ experience in the craft beer industry. And for that, I designed a survey to basically capture, information about the representation and the experience of LGBTQIA+ people in craft beer. Found some very, very interesting results. A lot of them not the results I maybe would hope for, but so basically just kind of try to raise the profile of especially queer people, but all underrepresented people in this industry, and try to make it more equitable for all of us.
And I think we absolutely need more conversations about this to make a difference. Before we get into how you guys are making a difference, you four are all here with me today because you have passionate voices about making a difference. What about your experiences in craft beer and just you as a person in general made you feel you had to step up and help make a difference, for this problem we have in the industry? And before we dive into that question, Alisa, are you back?
I am back. Can you hear?
Okay, cool. You sound great. We would love to hear who you are. I'm so glad you're back.
I'm Alisa. That was having technical difficulties, but I'm finally to the party. But cheers from New Haven, Connecticut. I am Alisa Bowens Mercado. I am the founder, CEO, and brewmaster at Rhythm Brewing Company. We are Connecticut's first African-American and first African-American female-owned beer company, and we're so excited to be here. So thank you, Andrew, and my fellow panelists, and Day. We'll get into that, the whole Fresh Fest. But it's exciting to see where the industry is heading. It's exciting to see what diversity and inclusion. I'm happy about these conversations that are taking place that were well overdue, but still we need to make some inroads in the brewing industry. Nationally, we know what the beer industry does annually in revenue, but that also ties into opportunity. So I'm happy to be here, and cheers again.
No, cheers. Once again, I appreciate you five being here. Back to the question, you guys are all here today because you decided to step up and you wanted to make a difference. What happened in your life, or why did you decide that, it was your responsibility to help get this message out there that our industry, can be better? And feel free at any point, anyone can jump in on this one. We'll just bounce around as the evening goes, or afternoon, Holly.
So back in my undergrad days, I went to University of Kansas, Rock Chalk. They have a brewery down there called Free State Brewing, and it's great beer. And the first time I had a craft beer was at that place, and I remember I was sitting next to a lawyer on one side and a undergrad, let's say, very liberal person on the other side. And they were talking to their groups about totally different things, but they were in the bar in the same place having beer, sharing the experience, even though they weren't talking to each other, but they were in the same place. And I think that's where it started on me, where the brew pub or the brewery is a community place that a lot of people, if not everyone of age, I suppose, can go. And then once the craft beer, and this was back in the 90s, early 90s. So when the craft beer started growing a little bit more in the 2000s, I wanted to see more of that. And it hasn't happened how I remember it at Free State, and that could be for various reasons. But I just thought if the community needed to come together, the brewery or the brew pub was a good place to do it. And that's kind of how I started mixing the conflict management into the brewery industry. Was I muted?
You might want to hit unmute.
Oh, there it is. All right. Hey, yeah. So I'm black, and it's hard for black people in America. In every aspect. I've had over 100 different jobs. And that's not an exaggeration. I just don't like to work for many people for too long. So I bounced around in a lot of different jobs and a lot of different professions. And, the more successful you are in any industry, the less people look like black people there. I mean, there's not a lot of black folks there or whatever. So, I got into comedy. I built a platform through that. I got into producing events, was successful in that. And I got into craft beer. I could afford that a little bit. And, the longer I was drinking it, the more I realized, there weren't a lot of us in any of the bars. And not just drinking, once we started to kind of peel it back a bit, we noticed there weren't black people being paid to do any of this. And then you go even further into the supply chain, like, the brew industry is just vast. I mean, there's brewer, but that's one person in a massive machine. It takes writers and hop growers and marketers and like machinists. And I mean, it's a complete industry. And throughout it all, there's just no black people in it, and it was like, well, why? So, I've always been an activist, in everything that I do. My background is social services, before I got into entertainment, and, I wanted to carry that into it. So, I wanted to utilize my platform, for the betterment. And I saw the beer industry as a great opportunity, something around like $240 billion, the alcohol industry total. And, less than 1% of that is owned. And that's ownership. Again, we're talking about, employment and all the various aspects of it. I don't brew beer. I pay my mortgage through the beer industry, and I don't brew beer. I don't own or operate a brewery. I'm just kind of like, adjacent to it in a sense. I'm writing about it and things of that nature. And I just wanted to kind of like, introduce my people to that opportunity and say, hey, you can get in on this. I met people that were just accountants. That's all they do. They just account for the brewer industry. I don't even know if they like beer, but they get paid for it. I mean, and it was like, well, why can't we do that? And it's because it's not presented to us as an opportunity. We don't even think about that, because in America, black people are supposed to just shut up and dribble the ball or rap, or work a meeting, a labor job. So, and those are our options. So, that's why I wanted to jump in. I saw this opportunity. I saw what it was doing for my life. And I wanted to, bring as many, black folks into it as possible. And not only as charity, but the beer industry, any industry is better whenever you bring more diversity into it, because you have, more people looking at the same, the same problem with new eyes and experiences. And in an industry that prides itself on variety, it's so homogeneous in its nature. So, the more we bring more people into it, the more this industry can grow as well. So it's twofold. Not only does the industry is strengthened through more black folks and more diversity, but my community is strengthened by the opportunity that the industry brings. And, that's why I'm here. I get to talk shit and drink in the interim. So
I'm glad you're here. And, me being a white guy that looks like everybody else in craft beer, I don't like going into a room with people who look just like me. I grew up in a community where at times I was in the minority, and I enjoyed having faces that looked like, everybody in this room, just different faces with different experiences, with different backgrounds I could learn from, because that's what a community is. It isn't just one person who looks like everybody else. It's people who look like the real representation of the people in that area. And I think we need to do a much better job of getting that representation in the tap rooms. And I think you're doing great things to help with that. Now, Larry, you're up.
I think for me, it's part of it comes back to my childhood. I moved around as a child, kind could be from family things, but it doesn't matter. After high school, I definitely was tired of where I spent most of my life and wanted to get out. And I lived in a lot of communities where I was probably, I won't say I was the only white person, but I was, it was a role reversal from how I was growing up. And even in my childhood, I specifically, and I don't know how or why this happened, all my girlfriends and all my friends were mostly not white. I got teased about it all the time. As a white kid, being friends with people who weren't white or having girlfriends who weren't white. And then having moved around a lot and experiencing this country and this world, I've lived in other places, far beyond, spent a lot of times in Southeast Asia as well. Are just really, for me, I just celebrate the differences. I don't look at differences as being bad. I look at differences as being beautiful. It's what makes this world interesting. And I decided to come back and just use my experience and try to share what I had or I discovered with the world. And then I met my wife when I was overseas. And so this is just kind of this was already in the works, or the groundwork was being laid before I had met my wife. But when I met my wife, she just really kind of got incorporated into this for sure. She's been instrumental, very motivational as far as all that goes. And I can't even pretend to know what it's like to be somebody who's not white in this country. But I also can say that I've experienced what racism and hatred is just because of my childhood and just my life experiences. So I kind of set out in the beer world just because I wanted to introduce the beer world to other stuff besides, and keep in mind, I'm in Portland, Oregon, where people here, a lot of the dudes out here look like lumberjacks. They love wearing their plaid and their beards and nothing against Day. You got a beautiful beard, but I'm talking, it's very stereotypical Paul Bunyan, a lot of the looks out here, Portland, Seattle, Bay Area down south. It's just, that's how it is out here.
Bay Bunyan up there.
So I didn't mean to call you out, Dave. But for me, it was just, I wanted to show the world that beer can be brought to other groups, other people. And it doesn't have to be a white guy's industry. And honestly, that's kind of how we built our company. We've got in there where it's not happening at this exact second because we're actually right now bringing our brewery under a parent company of some other breweries right now. And it's going to be a big, beautiful thing when it's done. But we are actually putting together not just scholarships, but internships at the brewery as well, trying to get, now, don't get me wrong, if we're reaching out to the communities that we're trying to help out and reach. So whether that's the Black community, the Pacific Islander community, the Southeast Asian community, the Latino community, the LGBT community, we're definitely looking to attract them and bring them to the brewery. But if I'm not getting anybody who's going to apply for that, then we're going to go with whoever we can. But we've done pretty good. Our sister brewery, front of the house. I never really paid attention to this until this discussion was about, or we were planning this and putting this together. And it didn't hit me until recently that the front of the house staff, pre-COVID, because right now there's no front of the house staff right now. It's just shut down other than to-go sales for beer. But pre-COVID, it was, I would say 90 to 95% LGBTQ. It's weird. I didn't even pay attention to that. And then just because of this, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Some of the things that we're trying to do have already been done. But that's my story, basically, as I really wanted to bring not just beer, but good beer to the masses. We've tried to make beer that's unique, that appeals to some demographics that this beer style hasn't been made before. And it's been really interesting how we've really gotten people to fall in love with craft beer who in the past have not liked it, just because we try to make something that's different, whether that's a cultural thing we try to implement into the beer, like an ingredient, or, I saw on the notes here, not just marketing, but actionable items do it. And so it has been marketing, but it's been actionable too. And the fact that we've done a lot of things and reach out to these communities, and those supports are there, and we've given back to these communities. We definitely It's hard right now with COVID, but that's our goal, is to get back to that once COVID is done and start putting these events back together again. So.
And we're going to dive into that in just a little bit. And I think it definitely needs to be said. It's not just about making craft beer with people not like me. It's everybody who's not a white guy needs to have a better experience in craft beer, no matter what you look at, no matter who you are as a person. There's so much room for we can be better. And Holly, I'll turn the floor over to you with that.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, as a queer person myself, and a gender fluid person, you know, kind of same deal as what some other people have said. Like, having just even in my own experience, and even being in a really liberal place, like, again, I'm in Seattle, so another Pacific Northwesterner. Even in a place like this, you know, the representation for other queer people, other LGBTQ plus people, just isn't. You know, when you walk into a tap room, it's not the first thing you notice. It's not even the second or third or fourth thing you notice. And so I was actually, how I kind of became even more passionate about this. I had already written some stories about people in the industry before this last series for Good Beer Hunting, but what kind of like lit a fire under me was I was actually researching another story idea I had about women in beer, also still an underrepresented group. You know, thanks to the Pink Boot Society, there are definitely more women in the industry than there were before. Not entirely thanks to them, but, you know, largely thanks to them. But I was, you know, going to write another story about that, and was going to, this is in my story, but I was going to find those statistics and was like, oh, I wonder how many, you know, queer women there are. And then realized that there wasn't any data about LGBTQIA plus people ever collected anywhere, like by anyone, whether consumers or, you know, on the staff side. So that was really just kind of like challenging for me. And I guess I hadn't quite realized just how little representation there was in the industry until that. I was like, wow, there's not even any way to find out how many people there are. That's kind of upsetting, and someone should do something about that. I think I'll do something about that. Like, so yeah, that's why I designed my survey and kind of went to find out about that. But yeah, like, just as someone who, you know, has had a journey to come to terms with their identity, you know, I have had experiences in places outside the beer industry as well, where, you know, I felt erased, where I felt like I wasn't seen, or if I wasn't actively discouraged, I still didn't necessarily feel actively welcomed either. And, you know, kind of like some of the rest of y'all have said, like, beer shouldn't be like that. Of all the places that should be welcoming to everyone, I mean, like, there's no excuse. This industry is, you know, has the attitude and, you know, has all the potential to be a more welcoming place, and seems like it should be a more welcoming place. And I've met a lot of amazing people in it, but overall, it's not doing its job. And as I started researching this story, it was very striking. Like, as I started interviewing people, just that, you know, all the LGBTQIA plus people I was meeting, everyone was kind of saying, like, you know, I'd ask, oh, do you know a lot of other people in the industry? And they would all say, like, no, you know, like, I don't know anyone else. And even in, you know, pretty comparatively what you'd think would be more diverse places like California and New York, and it would be pretty rare that they knew anyone else. And that doesn't mean that none of us are there. It just means we're not visible and we're not being made to feel welcome. And yeah, like, spaces just historically, a lot of spaces historically haven't been like what you were saying, Day. Like, a lot of spaces haven't historically been designed to make queer people feel welcome. It's kind of like assumed that you're not, unless it's like there's a big pride flag hanging or something. And I think that it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, that's my story.
I definitely agree. It should not be like that. And Alisa, we'd like to learn a little bit about you now. Why did you, one, decide to start a brewery during a pandemic? Because that's a big feat in itself. But two, decide to hop up on the stage and, want to get your voice out there and make a difference with regard to the problem we have.
Yeah, so I will tell you, we launched it in 2018. So, and you know what? We don't have a brewery. We are literally, it's like, from day one, I said, I'm going to build a brand. I'm not building a brewery. And I was going for it. I'm in the middle of New England. I'm not making an IPA. I'm making a lager. So I literally just went completely what everybody else was doing. I said, I'm absolutely not gonna do that. But I will tell you, the story has a couple of layers, and I'll compact them. My grandmothers were both lager drinkers, so I'm paying homage to them. So this story goes back like 45 years ago when I was tiny, and they used to drink the ponies of Miller High Life. I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, my grandmothers drank little things in a bottle, and they later, I think the gene and the genetics kind of flow down. That's why I'm a beer drinker. Fast forward, and I'm going to piggyback off of something that Larry said. I was there were 3 African-American folks in my high school graduating class. So I grew up kind of in the burbs, not a lot of Black folks around, not a lot of Latinos, not a lot of, folks of color. So I'm going to tell you, my parents always let me know you belong wherever you go. So when I would walk into a room full of like white folks, I didn't feel uncomfortable because I'm like, all right, there's people here. I'm here. But I knew who I was. I knew, like Holly was saying earlier, you know who you are. You identify with who you are, and you embrace it. But my aha moment was in the middle of a beer festival in Cape Cod. And I was there, and I was looking around, and not a lot of women, number one, and if they were there, they were getting dragged by their boyfriends or their husbands because they were just there. And then I kind of looked, because, when you're of color, you kind of look to see the scenario, be like, all right, how many brothers and sisters are like in the house? And there were none. And on the way home, I was with my husband, and on the way home, he goes, why are you so quiet? And he's like, you're never quiet. And I looked at him because at the beer festival, I couldn't find any lagers. There were no lagers. And at one point I go, oh my gosh, can we please, do you think there's any Bud Lights here? He goes, oh no, you can't say Bud Light in the middle of a craft beer festival. And I said, I don't give a shit that I'm at a craft beer festival. I just want something normal. I want a normal beer. And so on the way home, he goes, why are you so quiet? And I said, you know what? I'm going to make my own beer. And that's when the wheels started turning. That's when I realized there were not a lot of Black folks, people of color. There were not a lot of women. When I found out literally about like the Fresh Fest, I thought I was going to roll over. I'm like, there's other people out there that look like me that brew beer. Are you kidding me? And then when I found out about Celeste Betty, I was like over the moon. I'm like, there's a Black woman that brews beer. But I will tell you, when I started getting into the economics of this, because I had to research the industry for about 3 years before I put a drop of liquid in a can. I had to go get pilots. I had to find brewers here in New England. When I found out that this was a multi-billion-dollar industry, and what people of color and women were getting, that really lit the fire. And I knew not only then was I going to become a brewer, not only then did I know I was going to get into this industry, but I said I need to move. In order to move a culture, you have to dive into the culture. And I'm going to tell, we are right now, there are no Black-owned, nationally distributed Black-owned beer brands. And please correct me if I'm wrong. And we are going to be the first in the country, because I'm going to make sure that happens. Because when that happens, okay, that cheers to, listen, everybody send me your beer prayers, because when that happens, I can literally, it's economic development. It is employment opportunity for all of us. And so that's kind of my story. I just always felt that I had a place there. But when I really got into not only the fact that I love beer, but people are calling me from all over the country. They want rhythm in their, they want to walk out the door and go to their store and buy rhythm, and they can't. So if you're not investing in Black and brown brands, then what are you doing? And that's how you blow the glass out of the ceiling, because you have to make sure that we have that same access that everybody else does. So, but that's the story.
I love that. I want to watch you grow your brand, but also your mission, because they go hand in hand. Now, I want to shift the conversation for a minute to something we've seen in Craft Beer Professionals. There's been a lot of conversation recently, about the diversity issue we're facing in the industry. And the way these posts typically work, someone will post something that's typically fairly positive. It'll get a lot of likes. It'll get a lot of love, a lot of positive comments. Then someone will come in and say, we don't have a problem in our industry. And often this person might be in an area that's not very diverse. They could be surrounded by white people and they don't think they have an issue. How can we educate people who might not see that we have a problem, might not be in areas where really change could be an option, in these areas in the middle of nowhere where it is just white people? You can't snap your fingers and have people of color appear in your tap room. You just can't make it happen. But for our industry as a whole, how can we better educate people like this who feel we don't have a problem?
Sorry, I didn't know if somebody else was going to talk. I would say, first of all, we shouldn't have any tolerance for things, for a lot of I mean, we can go into detail on what things, but I think we know what I'm talking about. There should be no tolerance for that. This is 2020, and we're all going to be glad this year is over. But yes, we've come a long ways, or I would like to think we've come a long ways. I mean, we can look at whether you want to talk politics and who was not reelected, just because I think people's voices were made clear. We were tired of that. Some of us are in shock that our country went back to that. It affected my family personally. And in the beer industry, we have to speak up. The public loves, it's funny, I talk to my wife and she's telling me how bad of a day she had when she deals with the public. And then when I tell about her stories about me dealing with the public, I'm like, yeah, I don't have those issues. People love the beer guy. It's just how it is. And whether we asked to be a role model, whether we asked to be influencers or not, it doesn't matter. That's just how it is. And we have to speak up and just let people know that is not okay. That's not right. First of all. And then second of all, maybe for those of us who are in communities that are very diverse, should reach out to maybe those who are in communities who aren't very diverse, or vice versa. There should be some way. Collaborations would be a great part of it. If I could bring somebody into our brewery from a community that wasn't very diverse, and they could see who we are, what we do, our market, maybe it might change their mind. Maybe it won't, but at least we've done something. We've tried something. I'm sure everybody else has some way better ideas or some great ideas as well. But that's my 2 cents. We just want to speak up, first of all. And then second of all is speak up again by reaching out. Conflicts don't go away by keeping silent, and sometimes you don't need to create the conflict by reaching out, but just reach out. And it's funny because a lot of people who you look at them and you're like, man, look at that guy. He's whatever. You look at him and everybody does it. He's different than you. And so you're already in your mind prejudging them, and come to find out, politics aside, maybe they're actually a pretty good person. And when you guys talk and share your stories, maybe you find your common ground and build upon it.
Well, one thing I wanted to go. Okay.
Go for it, Holly.
One thing I wanted to say is that me, I still can hear it. To me, a lot of the sometimes I think people thinking that we don't have a problem comes down to just this, to me, it's a very simplistic mindset, right? But people thinking well, I'm not prejudiced. So-and-so over there is not prejudiced. My friends in the industry aren't prejudiced. Therefore, there's no problem. and also kind of like not understanding the difference between like diversity and inclusion. So I had a lot of people on the survey say things like, oh, well, craft beer, it's not diverse. A lot of it was hard for people to argue otherwise, which at least I was like, okay, there's not so many people in denial out there as I thought maybe. But people thought that it was still inclusive because of the attitudes that they personally possessed and the people that they knew possessed. And so they're like, no, everyone's welcome here, so it's inclusive. And it's like, well, no. What I think we have to help people see is if it was inclusive, then it would be diverse. Like the evidence that it's not an inclusive place is that there aren't more underrepresented people in the industry because something's making them not feel welcome. And whether or not people are intentionally doing it, whether or not they realize they're doing it, like they're doing it, and because the proof is in the ranks. So, I mean, I also think collaborations are a great idea, you know, especially if it's a brewery and, like you were saying, Andrew, like a place that doesn't have a very diverse local population, period. There's lots of ways that you can still kind of do outreach and send messages about who you are and what you stand for. And yeah, doing collaboration brews, even just like promoting, you know, other breweries that are owned by people of color, that are owned by, you know, gay and lesbian and queer and trans and bisexual people. And, you know, like you can do fundraisers, you can support causes, you know, or organizations that, you know, work with these communities. So there's lots of things you can do, but it's about like being proactive, and it's about making an active effort instead of just kind of being like, well, I don't know, I'm welcoming and I put my job applications up and no one's applying. So like, I did my job. It's like, people are gonna have to work a little harder.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. Alisa or Day, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in because we keep throwing the collaborations out there. I will tell you, I've done 3 collabs this year, and that is the perfect way to start, you know, that conversation. We just did for Fresh Fest, Cinderlands and Rhythm got together. Rhythm in the Lands, and with Cinderlands, we were able to engage with their, you know, folks that love their brewery and love their products. I mean, then people were able to find out that there's like a, you know, Black-owned beer company that, you know, was teamed up through Fresh Fest, and then it just started this entire, you know, conversation. So, you know, and shout out to, you know, Cinderlands and again Fresh Fest for putting that together. The Black is Beautiful. We were ecstatic this year that we were able to collab with Two Roads here in Connecticut, one of the biggest in the Northeast. And when we did the Black is Beautiful collab with them, and I mean, they have a monster setup. So you've got the biggest brewery in Connecticut, and you've got us, one of the, you know, small in size, but big in passion, you know, connecting together. And then you've got these, you know, you've got the head brewer who on, you know, launch day, is sitting in his own tap room looking around because there was a sea of Black, brown, LGBTQ. There's everyone there. And he even had to say, oh shit, this is awesome. They hadn't seen that. And those are the conversations that come from collaborations of what does the industry need. And Alisa, if we can bring people like yourself in, then more people, Day said it earlier, you bring more people, the more people you expose to something, the more people that are going to be like, okay, what's craft beer? Let's keep it real. There's a lot of people of color that don't want to feel like they're embarrassed and say, what the hell is craft beer? And they feel comfortable coming up to me, maybe at a pre-COVID, at a beer festival, and saying, I just heard about this and I'm here, but what is actually, like, what's craft beer? And I can break it down. So we have to have those lines of communication open where people feel really, really comfortable of talking about, number one, what is it? And, you know, why do we enjoy it? And why do we want everybody to be exposed to it. So definitely collaborations. And shout out to Ouzelfinch and Virginia. That was my third collab this year. I wasn't letting COVID hold me down. So we did a lot of virtual collaborations, but we brewed with Ouzelfinch and Virginia. So great dialogue. I mean, just amazing. So yeah, I think that's where the conversations start.
Alisa, did you make it down to Hampton? Because Ouzelfinch is 30 minutes from where I'm at. So you have to let me know next time.
Oh my God, yes, and my family's from Hampton.
No way.
Nice. Aberdeen Road. Oh, I gotta come down and see, because I gotta come and get my seafood and my barbecue. So I gotta connect with you.
Cool. No, those collaborations are a really great idea. And I'd like to throw something out there right now, because Holly and I have had quite a few conversations recently about this problem, and she really opened my eyes to something. I wear my marketing hat so much, and I'm always talking to breweries about, how they can get new audiences through their doors. And by having community events, you can just, make more revenue because you're seeing more people. But through the conversation I had with you, Holly, I realized, while it is great to talk about ways breweries can get new people in, attract new audiences, and make more money, because that's the goal of being in business, that shouldn't be the reason we're doing it. We should want to make these places more inclusive because we need to make these places more inclusive, not because we think we can make a buck off someone in our tap room. So I really appreciate you for just changing the way I thought about that, because I agreed to both approaches, the marketing viewpoint, but also the inclusive viewpoint. But I didn't really look at it as which should come first. But I think at the end of the day, if we make our tap rooms more welcoming, we will be more successful as businesses because we're doing the right thing. Now, with that said, there's not a Band-Aid we can put on this problem and expect it to be better. But I would like to hear, Alisa, you've talked about some great collaboration ideas. What are some strategies or events, Dave, we could talk about your event all day long, that you've seen be powerful enough to help make a difference with regards to the problem that we have?
Day, are you jumping in there?
Yeah, so it's all tied. The marketing, ways that when you're talking about folks who don't see a problem and all that, like, you're right. So the way you make change is by making people, it's tying the self-interest. That's it. If you tie change to charity, and it's like, oh, well, there's not enough, gay people or black people or these folks, and we need more for the sake of it. People are going to do that until they feel like they've done enough, and then they're going to stop, because they're like, if I'm a straight white male, if I don't see any real reason to do this that's going to benefit my business, my family, my pockets, I'm only going to do it for a short period of time. The reason why the industry, and that's what the approach that we do at Fresh Fest, Fresh Fest isn't, we're not out here going, hey, there's not enough black people out here. Support us so we can get more black people out here. No, we go to the industry and we go, we see that you're plateauing. We see that you're cannibalizing the white dollars as you have in every other industry. And if every other industry in history, as soon as you get done cannibalizing the white male dollars, you start to go to those other communities. You go to the black communities, you go to LGBTQIA plus communities, you go to, all these underrepresented communities, because now you need more. We see you coming. We saw it happen in the 80s, back when, you pumped us full of malt liquor and Old E and all the bullshit. They didn't offer jobs. They offered Old E. You see what I'm saying? So, you're looking at this industry, and, the people keep coming and go, well, how do we get black people to drink beer? You offer opportunity, because if I have a job with you, I'm probably going to drink at your place. You know what I mean? And that's it's the industry needs that. Like, it's not that we need the industry. The industry will help us. Black people have been here despite us not wanting to. Like, people don't want us here. People don't want gay people here. People don't want women here. But we're here despite that. The industry needs us. That's why this is all happening right now. It's not just happening because, myself and Alisa and Holly and a bunch of other folks are out here, doing a bunch of work. It's also happening because the industry is plateauing and they need more people here. And we understand that. And the power is in the consumer. So when you're looking at folks that go, I don't see a problem, then, you can give them the facts and figures. Online, I talk to a lot of people on Facebook and on these social medias and whatnot. And I have these discussions about, this, that, and the other. If you are genuinely looking to do good work, if you are genuinely looking for a way to move forward, then we're here. There's more than enough people out here that will give that message, and together we'll move forward. If they're not ready for that, then there's no amount of beating on their door that's going to make them ready for that. And I think that's what we as changers need to know is, like, who do we put our time into, and who do we just go, you're not ready, and let them, they'll come to it. Not everybody, as a man, I wasn't ready to hear that I had privilege. I'm Black. What do you mean I got privilege in America? But I had to realize, like, as a man, as a straight man, as a natural born citizen in America, I have a lot of privileges. And you couldn't have told me that when I was 20. I would have probably fought you on that. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't ready to hear that. And I think that's what, it all ties into that. If you're looking at changing minds, you have to say, hey, I see you're a brewery out here in white America and things aren't doing too well or whatever. Have you tried diversifying your supply chain? Have you tried, looking at that? Because if you put the work in there, then the people will come. If you are conscious about, going to the Black hot farmer, conscious about going to, to somebody in the gay community and saying, hey, we want to outwardly say you're welcome here. It's, because welcoming is, there's a lot of systemic oppression, and systemic oppression is there because, it's people, it's built so you can't see it. But, when, so there's a lot of reasons outside of just it not being welcoming. But, when I go into a brewery, there's dog biscuits there. There's there's little things that say, hey, you're welcome here if you're a dog owner. Hey, you're welcome here if you're a parent. Hey, you're welcome here if you're this, that, and the other. You have to make that. You have to say, hey, you're welcome here. You have to do that. You have to go out. You have to meet the people where they are. And when it comes to marketing and all that, like I said, I mean, it all ties in. If you want to make change, you have to tie the reason for change to the self-interest. You change as an industry because it's beneficial for you, and this is how. And then, with the marketing, it's, if you're out there going, hey, Black people come in here, but you're not actually hiring Black people, that marketing is going to die in the water. So you have to actually be doing the work. So if you're looking at change, and then again, you have to spend your time with the people that are worthy of your time. Stop beating on Trump's door going, help Black people. Trump ain't hearing that shit. You know what I mean? But maybe there's Trump's cousin who's like, I don't understand why everybody hates my uncle, my cousin over here. Maybe he's on the fence somewhere. Maybe she's on the fence somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's better coming from people that look like us. White people, you got to talk to white people. Men, we got to talk to men. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how that works, because men aren't going to be listening to a lot of women when they talk. You know what I mean? Like, white people don't listen to me when I talk. I'm just an angry Negro. But, if a Jason is saying it, if a Larry is saying it, then it's like, wait, hold on. Say a little bit more. You see what I'm saying? And again, it can't just be charity. It can't just be, hey, Black people, or, there's not enough this and the other. It has to be, hey, I see your dollars aren't working here. I see your this isn't working. Hey, have you thought about not being, a little as you are? Maybe you'll be a little bit better off as a result of that change. So, I think that's where the approach with Fresh Fest, we do all of that. We try to go to the places. We try to create a safe space with the marketing outwardly to people, saying, hey, you're welcome here. We put the work in behind the scenes. Our board is very diverse. The vendors that we choose are very diverse, and the industry, they see a benefit in it. The brewers, when they brew, they see more people coming through their door. They see more exposure. They get their name in various places because they're doing the work, and it's necessary. So when you're talking about events and things of that nature, it has to be all of that, or else you're just getting shit faced, which is nice, but we've been doing that for centuries, and look where it's led us.
No, Dave, I think you're doing a great job of putting the work in and building these relationships. And what you say, you're getting tons of love in the comments right now. So keep it up. Jason, you just unmuted
I was
there.
just kind of going back to what the question was and what Dave was saying. The people who don't see a problem, that is a problem, but I think it's one that you have to bypass for now. I wouldn't say you can't be intolerant to them. I think the people who say there's no problem have something to say, and if you keep pushing them, they're going to look for confirmation bias to support their non-problem. So my suggestion is acknowledge that they're saying there's not a problem. Say, okay, well, we disagree on that. I'm going to do this anyway. And when they see progress being made, and oh, by the way, there are dollars coming in, then they may change their tone. You can't really push them. I kind of think back to Oscar Blues, and they were the first craft brewery to can beer, and everybody thought they were crazy. And they're like, no, this is the way to do it. It took a while, 10 years, 15 years or so, for other breweries to can. And now they're all doing it. So I think it's just not to disparage those who say there isn't a problem, but just say, okay, that's your opinion. I'm just going to go ahead and go with this. And another thing that Dave said was creating a safe space to talk about and to kind of interact. I would go one further and say create a brave space, and that's people who want to go to a place where they may be feeling unwelcome. You know, make it so they'll be brave and they can come in and do it. It's easier said than done. A safe place is great. A brave space is opens the door for actual interaction rather than just going and having a beer. So that's just the two things I kind of wanted to point out, just from a conflict perspective. Is yeah, you can't push people to think the way you think. The more you push, the more they're going to resist, and they're going to find reasons to resist.
No, I really like your take on it, Jason. Thanks for sharing that. Would anybody else like to hop in on this one?
I was just gonna say, I think, I guess, just kind of to reinforce some of what Dave was saying, the fact that, yes, you have to make people see the value of, the dollar value of doing these things, in addition to just it's also the right thing to do. I think that's an important point. And the providing pathways is really important too. And you can offer scholarships, you can offer, certain positions or opportunities that are only open to underrepresented people. And that's a direct way you can, pave a path for other people to get into the industry if you're in a position of privilege and you want to do something. And yeah, I don't know, I guess, Andrew, when we were having our kind of conversation about this, it's what sparked our conversation was that, I don't know, when I've looked at some of the, panel discussions or some of the marketing or whatever that is out there, that's for a conference, it was for a conference we were looking at, and the descriptions, of the sessions were all sounded just so exploitative to me. So it's I don't know, I think what Dave was saying is very valuable about if you're doing this, if you're trying to become more diverse or inclusive for a performative reason, just to kind of exploit the population and get more money out of them without actually offering opportunities, that people will see that eventually, and that it'll kind of come out in the wash. And so yeah, I guess you can do it that way if you want. You can do it as this hey, leverage this community. Here's how to I don't know, leverage diversity and inclusion, I think was one of the session titles I had seen, and stuff like that is gross to me. I don't like it. But yeah, but if people are doing it just as a marketing tool, then yeah, I think they'll find that doesn't work for them in the long run, because people will know, they'll find out if you're not being authentic. People can tell.
And the word authentic, something that comes up so much in craft beer, whether it's authentic to your brand or authentic to the environment that you create. And if you're not authentic, or if you just go and brew Black is Beautiful and say, I did it, that's not doing it. You have to do so much more.
Yeah, I mean, the social media is real, man. People were able to get away with that shit back in the 80s and 90s because we ain't have Twitter and Facebook. But I'm seeing, and there's groups for everybody, man. like I'm in, I'm sure you're all in dozens of beer groups. There's all kind of, nuanced beer groups or whatever. Man, these beers, like they're getting ripped apart, and it's all over. It's brands in general. Like the age of faking the funk is quickly dwindling here in America. Like if you ain't about that shit, like if it's on the internet, the shit is there forever. They're pulling receipts, man. They'll pull your shit back from 10 years ago. They'll pull your shit, to 5 years from now. Like it's wild, like what they're doing out here. So it's like, if you're not doing it, you're not doing it consistently, somebody is going to be out there, and like, it's business. This is a business. At the end of the day, it's cutthroat. So somebody's fighting for the opportunity to take you down. You see what I'm saying? So you gotta, if you're not legit, bruh, it's coming for you, man. It's coming for you. I rue the day they're coming after me, man. I'm sure something, you know what I mean? Like something I ain't doing right. I'm gonna find out someday, but like I said, man, be on top, because the social media will take you all the way down. I'm in these groups, and like, the Black is Beautiful, there's at least a half a dozen, to a dozen breweries that brew that Black is Beautiful, and they're tearing them apart. Like, oh, these fake ass, like in the background or whatever, like, cause it's open. It's like everybody can see you, bro. This ain't the Stone Ages. You know what I mean? You can't just you can't send a carrier pigeon to Europe and expect motherfuckers not to know where it came from, man. Like, there's a GPS tracking that bitch all the way over here. They gonna see all the sharks and the dips that they flew by. You can't get anything past motherfuckers these days, man. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I've been drinking.
Well, I think that brings up an interesting question or situation is, as breweries start to practice this, what are the mistakes that they're going to make, and how are they going to be responded to? Will they make an honest mistake and not do something correct or the way someone else would like to see it? And then how are people going to jump on them for making that mistake? I think there has to be room for error. I don't know how much room that is, and I don't know what errors they would be. But I think there's going to be some bumps along the way, for sure.
Well, I think, to use an example we've seen a lot of on the internet, as breweries, make a label that appropriates Black culture, then they act like they didn't know they were making a problem, and then they don't apologize for it. I think if you do something that's inappropriate, you need to accept responsibility for your actions and take the steps to better educate yourself so that doesn't happen again. We keep seeing breweries make these mistakes, and it's frustrating to see, but I think we need to start seeing people get better and understand, like, oh, I see why I shouldn't have done this. And Day, I know you and I had a conversation about a brewery, that just put a label out there that should have never been put out there, and they didn't get it. I don't think they understood that they made a mistake, and I think that's part of the problem. But Jason, your approach is, I think, maybe go slow with people like that and just slowly teach them how to be a better person, unfortunately.
Yeah, slow may be relative. I think there could be quick, sharp learning points that they go through, and then I don't say forget about that point, but then move on. So make the mistake, learn it, and move on from that.
I mean, people ask that all the time. They're like, oh, I'm afraid to do this or that or whatever. And like, honestly, it's the intent. And if your intent is pure, and if you feel that like it's the right thing, like free speech comes with consequences. Everything comes with a consequence. So if you do something, you need to do it knowing that, not everybody's going to like it. Like, I mean, I get hate mail every other day, man. My inbox is filled with, death threats and people that are like, oh, why's it got to be about Black people? Da, 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 and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, I'm doing what I feel is right. And I'm defending that based on what I feel is right. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, you're not doing that the right way because of this, I'm always being, nobody's born woke. Like woke is Tetris. It's just a game that you play until you lose. I mean, like, you get to your highest level of competency and then you lose. So you have to know that you're going to get hit with that. But like, like folks were saying, it's the genuineness. Am I doing this from a good place? And am I willing to admit my mistakes and learn from that and then move forward? I mean, if you're stuck, if you're like, oh, I did it because it was right and fuck you for not liking it, that's not the way. Or if you're doing it again for nefarious reasons, that'll be exposed. But if you're just in the right place mind wise and you're doing the right thing, then like that cancel culture is overrated, man. There's still people writing R. Kelly in jail right now, man. That shit is a myth.
Alisa, you get ready to say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there. You know what? That I'm sitting in my dance studio right now. So I am, outside of being a brewer, I'm a professional salsa dancer. And one of the reasons why we named the company Rhythm is because what ties people together: music, sports, rival teams, whatever. I mean, but you just have you've got this camaraderie. And I try to I want to utilize the brand to tap into untapped demographics, but with people that have a common interest. But with the, okay, let's hold people accountable. I'm like the lady lager. They see me coming here in New England. They're like, oh, she's here. They're looking around. They're like, yeah, we need to. She's trying to move she's trying to promote diversity, inclusion. And you know what? Just by them looking at my face, I don't even have to open my mouth. They're like, we have to do better. We have to do better. And so, I mean, marketing things, it's like, I'll do a salsa night at a brewery. You're going to bring people that are Latinos, African Americans, white, everybody likes the salsa, Asian. You've got everyone that is at these breweries, at these salsa nights. That's what it's all about. Now, once somebody sees that, they're like, oh my gosh, we danced, people drank beer, they found out that they can hang out at a brewery, of course, pre-COVID. I think those are the conversations or the events that we need to start having. But you're right, we shouldn't have to beat the door down. Honestly, I should just show up and say, hey, I'm a brewer. There should be more of us. Is there anybody that looks like me, working here? Who's in the back? Who's brewing? Who's, like you said, the accountant? Because I'm going to bring you folks, then you have to be willing. You don't want to make people think that they're just doing you a favor and they're like, oh, all right, we filled our quota for the month. Good. No more salsa nights and no more black nights or whatever kind of nights for the next 6-7 months. We don't want nobody else in here. Look, we don't want that. We want equal space, equal fun. And that's what I'm seeing. And that's why we're trying to push with this brand. It's like, everybody should, find their rhythm, at least, one sip or one pint at a time. And I think that's what's going to start the circle moving, where people will be like, it's not being shoved down the throat. We don't want to be shoved down your throat. Shit, we have a good product. We have a good mission. You should want us here. You want some energy in your place? Bring us, in. And, the melting pot is, like I said, I love diversity. Grew up, with everybody is kind of like, moving in the same way, even though you might be only the one and only in the room, but create space, create safe space. But no, it's all about accountability. You should just have to show up and be like, what's up? Where can we get a spot? So that's my take on it.
Alisa, I absolutely love that. And the conversation we had last night in the panel was essentially that brewers understand you can throw peaches in a beer, you can throw blueberries in a beer, and people are going to buy that beer just because it has an ingredient everybody knows and loves. But
right.
When you talk about making a place more diverse, they're not doing the steps to bring other people in by putting salsa dancing there, by having other community events that are welcoming to everybody else. They get it from what we throw in the beer will sell more beer, but they also need to get it from the personal relationship level of, hey, we can have events that other people who don't normally come here are going to enjoy and want to come to our business because we want to be more inclusive. So I think
exactly.
we need to build those relationships. And we've got a question in the comments right now I want to bring up, and we're going to kind of do this, not a lightning round, but, not as detailed as we would like to do on this one. What is one way, Max asks, you would each recommend to remove barriers to diversity in our industry, whether it be in production, tap rooms, or whichever facet? What's that one way you would recommend to remove barriers to diversity in our industry? And I don't think there's that, perfect solution. So I'd love to hear, you guys' thoughts on this one. Larry, you're up.
You must have saw me unmute. I honestly, I think it's a couple things. It could be who you're hiring. Dave made a comment earlier, and I don't remember if this was actually, I think this was his introduction. He said this, but he's a black guy in the industry. He's not a brewer, but he's in the industry. And, this isn't saying that you have to go look far and wide to find a guy who's going to be your head brewer that's a person of color. But it's probably more important, I would say, is people like front of the house, just who the public sees, and that's the image you're portraying. That's a good step. Now, granted, people love to meet the brewers. It's important to do that as well. The other thing is your events. What are you doing for your events? Are you just randomly looking to make money, or what is the image of your brewery that you're trying to portray? And are the events that you're sponsoring and then you're involved with these, or nonprofits and everything else, are they supporting what you say your brewery is about? And I'll be honest, we've done a lot of things and we've sponsored a lot of events, and not all of them made money, but we did it because we believed in it and we knew that going into it. So, yes, some may say I'm not the smartest businessman because I probably could have chosen smarter events to do where I could make, or we could have made a lot more money, but that's not what we did. We like to choose events just because we feel it fits our branding. We've done that with things like legal funds for immigrants. We actually have a tap room. There were some legal issues where it's not under our name at the moment. It's being moved into our name, but it was in this building. Two gentlemen that opened this up are immigrants from Africa, and everybody who owns a business in there, but us, is a first generation immigrant in this building. And this place, it's shut. It's can't have concerts right now during COVID, but when it was open, had some amazing concerts from artists from all over the world. Lots and lots of reggae concerts. It's one of the main financial backers is an NFL player that grew up here in Portland, and for us, it's just open doors, and we took a gamble. We were like, you know what, it fits who we are. Who knows if it's going to make money, but if we can break even and get our name out there, that's fantastic. So, those are the things. Put your money where your mouth is. How about that? Put your money where your mouth is. Hire the people that you want to show who you are as a company, and put your dollars. Let them speak for you. And if a brewery's not doing that, then I think the consumers eventually, if they're not already, are going to see that, and hopefully they're going to shift who they're supporting and put their money towards people they want to support who do that.
Yeah, you definitely have to be authentic. Alisa, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We just were blessed to team up with the Connecticut Brewers Guild, NEVCO, New England Brewing Company, with Sacred Heart University, and we are offering, it's a scholarship program, African American scholarship program. We're going to try to, within the next 5 years, $250,000 to raise money to invest in the future of Black brewers. And we're just excited about that. So the question, I think his name was Max, or her name was Max. Yes, we need those scholarships. We need these people that are interested to go through these programs. But again, we're teaming up with a brewery here that's putting their money, like Larry said, where their mouth is. They want to see, and because one of their head marketing folks in there now is an African American male. And so by him working there, he's reaching out, and now they're reaching out. Now we're connected with the university. And so those are one of the things. Brewers, put your money where your mouth is. Get these scholarship funds going. It could be 10,000. It could be whatever, but just get it out there so that you can offer Black and brown people these scholarships to come in and really learn the art of brewing, so that they can get in the intersanctum, and that gift will go on and on and on. So that is absolutely one of the ways is through scholarships.
Yeah, we have to be more equitable. I love that idea, and that's quite lofty goals. I'm so excited to follow the progress there. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, you can find that on all of our social media. So it's a great program. We're excited about that.
Now, Day, Jason, and Holly, I would love for you, Day. There we go. Oh.
I think ultimately you have to ask, what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you're capable of. I mean, not everybody is going to be able to give back the way that, everybody else gives back. I mean, like, I'm broke. I can't offer, a lot of money to folks. Like, I can't brew beers. I can't, I can only do what I can do. So I think you have to assess who you are and what you have. What is your platform? What are your capabilities? I mean, are you working in the factory? Maybe you can offer, somebody some of your knowledge and skills that you have, maybe the connections, how you got to where you were at. Maybe you can mentor, or do you own a brewery? Maybe you can, hire an artist, are you in a place that doesn't have a lot of white folks? Maybe you can, contact a black hop farmer somewhere that's, somewhere in the supply chain. I think that ultimately, again, it's a matter of assessing where you are and what you are capable of. And then again, to go back, how does it benefit you? You know what I mean? Like, don't look at this diversity thing as a charity. Like I didn't, I'm an artist, so I'm going to perpetually be kind of broke. But like, at the end of the day, like I wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't some monetary, like benefit to it. Like even with, social work, granted, I wasn't getting paid shit, but I still was getting paid. Like I was, it was enough to kind of pay my bills in a sense. So you have to, so like Fresh Fest, when we go to a brewery, we say, hey, what are your strengths and skills? What are your needs? We assess, as a brewery or whatever. And then we go to other breweries and we go to other people in the community and we say, hey, what are your strengths and needs? And then we pair them as a result so that that combination isn't charity. Both brewery and the collaborator, whatever that is benefiting in that. That brewery is being introduced to a new marketing, a new audience. That artist is being introduced to a new branding, is getting more promotion or whatever. Figure out what it is that you're doing. Figure out your strengths, and then figure out how you can collaborate with somebody that, look around you. Like as a man, again, like, Fresh Fest is successful because as a man, our target demographic is Black women. Alisa is our target demographic because they are the least heard. And I know that as a man, this industry got enough of us. I'm looking around and I'm like, there's enough of us. How do I pull in people that don't look like me? All right. That Black people is one thing, but it's also women. It's also gay people. So it's like, you got to look and you got to say, hey, what is it that I have? What is it that I'm doing? And how can I pull other people into it so that we both benefit? Not just how can I give them something so that they can do, how can we both benefit from that? And if you do that, then eventually, that shit'll it'll keep coming, man. The best parties are the ones that are diverse. And the best food is the one that has more spice in it. You see what I'm saying? Potatoes aren't cool until you add some seasonings in there. More than just that salt and pepper, man. Throw some paprika in them bitches. You see what I'm saying? So, again, strengths and weaknesses, find somebody that can complement that and then make it better. Fuck the charity.
Day, I love how you keep it real and appreciate all that. Jason and Holly, you want to round us out? What is a recommendation you'd give?
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely echo everything said already. And yeah, I think collaborations and partnerships are like one of the easiest, best ways anyone can do it. You can always reach out. It's like, if you want to know how to benefit a certain community that you're not a member of or that you think is underrepresented, like try talking to that community, like reach out to them, ask actual people from that community, what their experience is, what would they would like to see, and hire them and, work with their organizations in collaborations and fundraisers and in any way you can. Even if you're just sharing content on your social media, from Black-owned breweries, from queer-owned breweries, like all of that helps. All of that, helps to amplify everyone's voice. And just one thing I thought I'd mention that hasn't been brought up really too is like the physical space itself can also send messages about, who's welcome. And like, I think that's something a lot of brewery owners aren't aware of necessarily or aren't paying attention to. It's like, the decor, the music, the lighting, the way seating's arranged, like, the art that's on the walls, as Dave was mentioning, like, who's created the artwork, what does it look like, who's depicted in it, all of these things like help send the signal about who's welcome. And, if it's designed to look like a, man cave or like that's gonna send a certain message to people. Like if it's super dark and there's aggressive death metal playing, like those all are things that send messages. Like not like, you have to be blasting Britney Spears for, queer people to feel welcome or whatever, but it's like you can make different choices. You can feature artists, musical artists, visual artists, from different backgrounds, and there's a lot of subtle ways too, besides the more overt things that all factor in. So.
It's almost silly to say, but if you want to be diverse, you have to be diverse yourself.
Yeah.
We talk about it in the space to make people want to be there. No, Jason, is there anything you'd like to add to this? I think you might have your daughter running around behind the green screen there.
Yeah, she found the present stash. So I'm trying to corral her. Yeah, I would say try to from a 30,000 foot level down to the individual level. I think in order to kind of change, the world, and change ourselves, and when that comes to the tap rooms and to the breweries inside, how does your staff interact with the customers? There's a brewery in Denver called Strange Craft Beer Company, and their motto is "Strangers are friends that just haven't met yet," and they treat everyone like a friend. And I think the interaction as from the front end with the customers, you may support one sports team or political person, and the customer may support somebody else. That's a difference, and that's diversity, and that can create tension. So how do they deal with that tension? Do they treat them differently? Do they treat them the same? Do they listen to them? Do they just throw a beer in front of them and say that's $5 or $7 or whatever? So I think on the individual level is how people in that place relate and interact with each other is going to be. It has to be a welcoming and inclusive, and yeah, we're all different. Who gives a shit? Okay, I could learn from you. You can learn from me. We could have the same beer and taste different things. Let's talk. So I think that's a hurdle that is huge and probably overlooked. And it's not easy. It's not easy to talk to somebody who has drastically different perspectives and opinions and think you're wrong and you think they're wrong. But that's what happens. So I think individual level builds up that bigger level as well.
I think the conversations Jason just spoke about and the conversation we're having right now, these are really important steps just by talking about it even more. I mean, the more people who can understand what we're talking about, the more results we will see, I believe. And I hope we continue to see more progress in the craft beer industry. And I want to close out with one final question. This is a question, I apologize for my alarm there, a question I've been asking at the end of every single panel. We've talked a lot about problems this hour and a half so far, but I want to end on a positive note. I would love to hear a bright spot in each of your lives that has happened during 2020. It's been quite the year, and I love to hear some good that's come out of it for you, whether personal, whether business. Just give us a little something positive to end on, and feel free, whoever's ready, to hop on in.
I'm going to jump in quickly. You know what? I always say this year, what it has taught me is that chaos breeds opportunity. And if you can, and that has been kind of like the motto for myself personally, but with the brand, all of this chaos, there's so much opportunity that has opened up, the doors. We've been blessed to get a lot of, Martha Stewart magazine, Good Beer Hunting. I mean, we've gotten a lot of attention. No, I don't think those conversations might have happened in 2019, to be very honest with you. We're now having conversations with people that we can tell our stories. And so I'm optimistic. No, I am beyond optimistic. I don't know what I am right now. I'm really excited about what the end of the year is going to bring and what 2021 is going to bring. people have come out the woodworks. We've had a lot of video productions with ads. People just wanted to give back to the company and to the brand, and wanted to know, how are we surviving in this, and how can we support you? So the bright spot, honestly, has been meeting people. I don't think I would have met it in 2019, because people had to sit their behinds down because of this COVID, and you had to focus. And it wasn't a me thing. It was an us. It was a all together. What are we going to do? And so I've had some incredible, conversations and collaborations. So I'm just excited to see what 2021 can bring. But there's just a lot of exciting things that have gone on. I don't know. I'll wake up tonight at like 1 a.m. and be like, dang it, I should have, mentioned that on the chat. But just all good, all good, all positive. So, and sales are up. So that's that's a good thing.
I love your passion so much. Thank you for bringing your energy tonight.
Thank you.
I would kind of go with that a little bit and say 2021, whenever hopefully COVID goes away, or at least abates a little bit, the rush to the breweries is going to be huge. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, and I hope that the rush to the breweries also means that people want to interact with each other again. And what COVID kind of did for 2020 was take the social aspect away from having a beer. And if beer is a social lubricant and there's no social, and it's not really a lubricant for anything except yourself. Okay, that sounds weird, but I think it underscores kind of the importance that beer has as a community adhesive almost, and hopefully in 2021, whenever we could go back out, people will realize that, and they'll remember, 2020 sucked. This is awesome. I'm going to keep doing this.
And thanks for sharing, Jason.
Yeah, I guess sort of along the same lines, I think one really important thing we've all seen, among many important things that have been brought to life, is like how fragile food and beverage businesses were, and kind of all the issues and problems that were already there. All the pandemic did was expose a lot of problems that have been around for a long time. I mean, obviously, yes, it brought its own set of problems, and there's a world of COVID-specific illness problems that were not there before. But the main thing that I think a lot of people have realized is just how broken all of our systems were, and the food and beverage industry has kind of simultaneously been like a good example of all that was already wrong, and also has shown us, kind of like what everyone else was saying, like also it's kind of shown us what was really important, and how vital these places are to our lives, and how much, of life is celebrated and created, and, and sorrows are drowned, and like the whole cycle of life happens in a brewery or in a bar or in a restaurant, and like, that we took a lot of that for granted, I think, and probably took a blind eye to a lot of the problems that were already there, just maybe because we weren't ever expecting those places to go away. And now as they're starting to, it's like, oh shit, we need to fix this, and we need to make things better, because we all need these places. So I think that's really important, because I need those places.
That's true on so many levels, what you said, Holly. No, great insight there.
I would say for us, well, jokingly, but in all seriousness, I quickly learned how fast I can go from laughing to crying in a 5-minute span during the first COVID shutdown. It was very much a roller coaster ride. But what it's done is it's exposed our weaknesses as a business, and how, sorry to use this word during this discussion, but how not diverse we were as a business on how we were doing business, as far as, say, the way we were packaging. We were actually draft only until COVID hit. We had demand. but I was just happy doing draft. It was so easy. I could move a lot of beer. And it forced us to start canning. And I'm glad we did. We needed to. I was being lazy or naive or just in my comfort zone. And it took me out of my comfort zone. And we've reached a whole new target market with canning. People who, I mean, we're 5 years old. People are like, oh, you're brand new. No. We've been around for a few years now. And it's funny or sad, either one or both, how that's come to be. And people just realize, oh, they've been around, and not everybody goes to bars. Some people are homebodies and they want to drink at home. So for us, it's opened up new markets. We have diversified how we're packaging. We were kind of known for just doing so many one-offs and all these other beers. So now we've kind of pulled it in and have, our core beers and one or two, maybe three one-offs at a time. But it's really helped us to, we learned the hard way, right? Trial by fire, or whatever you want to say. We were thrown the wolves, but we really had to learn that we should be smarter in doing business. And then at the same time, it helped us to think about our future. And so right now, like I mentioned before, we're actually in the process. It's not a finalized project, so it may never go through, but it looks like it will. In discussion and bringing our brewery with some other breweries underneath a parent umbrella, which will in the end just really help us to grow. If it works out, it's going to actually help us grow way faster than it would have before. So while it's been hard, I'm knock on wood. How about my head? Hopefully it's going to pan out and make us stronger in the long run for sure. So
no, I'm excited for you, Larry. Thanks for sharing all that. And Dave, we're going to end with you. I love to hear a bright spot from your 2020.
Man, you know what? 2020 has been pretty dope. As Alisa was saying, chaos is a ladder. I grew up poor, black, and adventurous. So, I've always had a rough life and just had to try to figure out, like, stability isn't a thing. Like, I'm a comedian. Like, what the fuck is stability, right? I've always had to not really take things for granted and always kind of like, where's my next paycheck coming, and never really get comfortable. And living a life like that, you see a lot of the cracks in society, and you're screaming at society and going, yo, this shit ain't right. Like, why are we still living on a tip system? You know what I mean? Like, we're paying people $2 an hour and then relying on, the kindness of strangers to get them across, get them to the other, while the manager at a restaurant pulls up in a M5. Like, it's, it's a little weird. You know what I mean? Like, so a pandemic comes through and it throws society off, and everybody's like, what the fuck? And you know what? Like, I've found that, living a life of instability prepared me for an unstable world, while everybody is losing their shit going, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, welcome to my world. This is, and it's weird because I've always looked at all of my friends who are established. I got, all my friends are doctors and they got, degrees and this, that, and the other, and they live the whole thing. Now they're losing their shit. Like, I don't understand what I'm gonna do at home all day. And I'm like, man, get some McDonald's and wait it out. You see what I'm saying? Like, you gotta, like that chaos, like it for me, I always felt like, fuck, I'm a fuck up. And now I'm seeing that the world is a fuck up. Really, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. I've been saying it for years. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. They're just acting like it. The pandemic completely took the veil away from that shit. Trump, the best thing that happened to black people since Martin Luther King, because I've been sick of people telling me racism was over. We're in Obama's president. There's no more racism. Trump came in. Now we know there's racism. Pandemic came in. Now we know society is fucked up. We need some shit, and it's also forced us to, like, I don't need as much as I thought I did. I thought I needed way more than I did. I was always chasing this, that, and the other. Like, where's my next dollar coming from? This, that, and the other. Now I've been like, the pandemic came through. It was like, sit your black ass down and figure it out. So I'm not always chasing the next gig. I used to be decently employed. I'd be on stage 3-4 nights a week. I haven't been on stage in months, but with that time, I've been able to kind of sit back and go, all right, well, where do I want to go? Instead of just always reacting, where do I want to go? You know what I mean? Like, how do I, what do I have? How do I appreciate what I have? How do I appreciate where I've come from? And then sit down and make some real plans, moving forward and bring the people in, because, like, business will come and go, money will come and go. Like, I might even be in this industry, much longer, but the people I'll be with, the people are what matters, man. And the people is what got me here, and the people will get us through this pandemic. And that's what, this pandemic has shown us. Fresh Fest, it's a in-person event. It's an event, but we reached out to people like Alisa and said, hey, this is a mission. This is something that we believe in. Can you help? Like, is this, like, how can we come together? And as a result, like, Fresh Fest went digital. And not only did we just, it wasn't just a stopgap where it's like, all right, let's do something to get to the next thing. We strengthened our brand. Now, moving forward, what wasn't possible last year, we couldn't have done a digital festival last year. That shit would have been too expensive. Pandemic came through. Now Zoom is cheap. You know what I mean? Now people got a little bit of extra time to maybe hold a camera now. Now, when the pandemic comes back, instead of just having Fresh Fest as an in-person event, why are we not digital, pumping that to the world? You know what I mean? Everybody got an internet connection. Let's throw some cameras in here. And now everything that we do from the comedy side, let's throw some cameras in there now. Now you ain't got to listen, man. I used to be out all day, all night, you do all those things or whatever. Now I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just want to sit and chill my old ass out at the crib, and maybe turn it on digitally and see some shit that I may have gone to the club for, like a DJ or a beer event or something like that. So, I think this pandemic, while it has been terrible, and, condolences to the folks that we've lost. I know I have friends and family that have been personally affected by this. I'm pretty sure everybody in America has somebody that they know that has been affected by that. Not to make light of what it is, but, again, something, it's fire. It's fire that, forges that steel. And I think that's something that as a society, we needed this, because, the shit was not cool. I wasn't comfortable before this. Everybody's like, I can't wait to go back to normal. I wasn't comfortable in the normal. And now I'm excited to see what comes after this. And it's going to be far from normal. It's going to be far from normal. If I got anything to say about it, So, shout out to everybody on this panel. Shout out to you, Andrew, for putting this together. And giving me some social to go with the lubricant, So, cheers.
No, I miss social interaction so much, and it's been great to talk to so many great people over the past couple of days on the internet and through the pandemic, because we can still build these relationships. We can still make a difference. Just because we can't necessarily go to tap rooms like we once could doesn't mean we can't make a difference and make a change and make the future better for everyone. So, I've enjoyed listening to you guys the past hour and a half. The insight you put out there, just the voice that you each have, is so important in the world today. So I truly can't thank you enough for being willing to come here today, just to share your stories, share your suggestions, just share everything that you put out there the past hour and a half. So thank you so much, Jason, Larry, Holly, Alisa, and Day. You guys are making a difference. Keep making a difference. Don't shut up. Keep talking. Get that passion out there, because the things you've said tonight are how we are truly going to get better. So thank you again. And we're going to sign off now, but I'm looking forward to the next conversation with each of you. And I'm looking more forward to that beer in person, or tequila and OJ day, whatever we're drinking when we hang out. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
so, cheers, everyone. Whatever it may be, I can't wait.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much. And next year is going to be a great year.